we do each week, let's give a whole lot of love to our online audience. Come on. So listen, I got to piggyback off of what Pastor Jay says. Pastor Jay says this. So he says if you're within a 8-hour range of driving, then you need to be here. Come check us out, because I tell you, it's really good online, but it's really, really good in the house. Amen? Amen. How about that worship team this morning? Oh, my goodness. And, I know Cadence is probably already left for the day, but I'm telling you what, the anointing of God is on that girl's life. And I am just so glad that we get to see that develop each week. Well, today, I want to talk to those of you that feel like that you were created to do something big, to do something meaningful, to do something eternal. And you feel that you were created to make a difference. But you may not know what it is. And then if you do know what it is, you may not know where to start. So this morning, what I want to do is I want to talk to you, and I want to read a verse that I pray gets in your spirit. I pray that it just builds your faith, and I pray that it causes you to realize that you were uniquely and wonderfully created. You were created uniquely. You were created with a purpose. You were created to make a difference in the world. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1. Now, the Apostle Paul, he was writing this verse in prison, mind you, somewhere around the time of 61 AD. But I want you to listen to what he says here. He says, therefore I, a prisoner for serving the Lord. Wait a second. What do you mean? You mean he was in prison not because he murdered somebody, not because he was a thief, not because he beat some kid up and took his lunch money, but he was in prison just for serving the Lord. But I want you to listen to what he says. Feel the emotion in this statement. He says, I beg you, to lead a life worthy of your calling. For you have been called by God. I've titled this message today, Is God Calling Me? The answer is yes, God is calling me. Turn around, look at your neighbor, fist bump them, say, God's calling you. If you're online right now, type in the chat, God's calling you. So listen, in this world where people are all about promoting their brand, trying to get famous, promoting, all of their, how good they are. Like, for instance, trying to get TikTok famous. Was that good? Come on. Could I get TikTok famous off of that? If you like that move, my choreographer is Alicia. If you didn't like that move, my choreographer is Alicia. But in a time where everybody is trying to make a name for themselves, I want to try to reclaim the sacred meaning of called. What does it mean to be called by God? See, every good message this morning and any message that I've ever done in the past that I've ever heard, it always has a word from the Greek. So we're going to have a Greek lesson this morning. Are you ready for your lesson? So the word this morning that we're going to talk about is the root word for 16 very important words in the New Testament. And that word is kaleo. It's spelled K-A-L-E-O. Now, kaleo, it just means to be called. And then we have a root word called klesis, and that means calling. I know this is getting real deep. And then we have kletos, which means to be called. And then we have paraclete. That's the comforter. Who would that be? Holy Spirit. There you go. Man, you guys are on it today. And then I like this word, parakletos. That's an advocate or intercessor. Who is that? Jesus. There you go. And then my favorite word of all, I love this word. It's ecclesia. It's the church. That word just rolls off your lips so smoothly. Ecclesia. If we had a daughter, I probably would name her Ecclesia, Alicia. What do you think? No, I don't think so. She's looking at me. I don't think so. But ek, E-K, It means to come out from. We are called out. As a church, we're not called to a building, so to speak. We're called to be a light to the world. Amen? Now, if you're like me and you realize that God has uniquely called you, He's created you for something big, you recognize that you have a gift and your calling is going to make a difference, then you know what? That can kind of put a little bit of pressure on you, correct? You're like, oh man. Then you start asking questions like I do. What if I missed my calling? Now, how does that look? Let me just give you a couple of examples. Maybe you're sitting here today and you said, you know what? I know, Bill, that God called me to go to the University of Kentucky, but instead I ended up at Tennessee. Or it may look like this. What if I was supposed to major in chemistry, but I couldn't, and all I majored in was history? Or for some of you single guys in the room, maybe you were in small groups and there was this really good-looking girl, and you knew you were supposed to ask her out, and instead small groups stopped. She got sick. She went to the doctor. The doctor was a good-looking dude. He asked her out. Next thing you know, they're dating. They're getting married. They've got the house with the picket white fence, and then they've got 2.5 kids. How do you get half a kid, by the way? I've never figured that one out. 2.5 kids. They've got a dog. They're going to live happily ever after. And you get stuck in your mundane, boring life of just, you missed your opportunity. Am I the only one that ever thinks like that? So, what is it specifically that I'm called to be? What am I called to do, God? It's got to be something big. God, it's got to be something important. If you're a note taker, I want you to write this down. Calling is about who you are before what you do. I'm going to say that again. Calling is about who you are before what you do. See, the truth is that when God calls you, He's calling you to a who before He ever calls you to a do. Here's what I'm talking about. 2 Timothy chapter 1, verse 9. For God saved us and called us to live a holy life. He did this not because we deserved it, but because that was His plan from the beginning of time, to show us His grace through Christ Jesus. Now, notice what this verse did not say. This verse did not say, for God saved us and called us to become a pastor. That may be later on. God saved us and called us to become a missionary to a third world country. No, it's not what it says. That may come later. God saved us and called us to live a holy life. That's it. God called us. That passage says He saved us and called us to live a holy life. See, your calling is as much who you are becoming as it is about what you're doing. See, we're called to be holy. What does that mean? We're called to be set apart. We're called, in other words, to be, if we're a follower of Jesus, we're called to be different. We're called not to fall into the same stuff that the world pursues. We're set apart to be different. We're not driven by the same things that others are driven by. We're called to be holy. Nowhere in the Bible does it talk about your calling ever being a career. Do you know what it says? Our calling is to become Christ-like. So when you recognize that there's a calling on your life, instead of asking, what am I called to do? The better question is this: who am I called to be? It's a who before a do. Who is it that God wants me to become? If my calling is only about a do, it's going to get a little confusing. Let me demonstrate this for you. So right now in this room, and this is audience participation, I'm going to ask First service hurt my feelings a little bit, so I hope y'all don't. If you believe that I am called to be up here in this moment delivering the message and I am the preacher this morning, raise your hand. Nice. You guys, you didn't hurt my feelings at all. All right. That's good. So I'm called to do that. If you believe this morning, audience participation, if you believe that I am called to be the husband to Alicia, raise your hand. Everybody, Alicia, let me tell you this. In the first service, half of the people only raised their hand. I thought, there's some guys out there that think they can be a better husband than you, evidently. But let me demonstrate what this looks like. So Alicia and I have been married 27, almost 28 years. Yeah, I know, man. I'm telling you. Come on, yeah, get it up. Now, in the 27 years, we have had some constructive discussions. That's the preacher's way of saying we've had some arguments. We've always rebounded from those arguments pretty nicely. But I want to ask you this. So you guys agreed that I'm called to preach. You also agreed that I'm called to be Alicia's husband. How would that work if I looked at Alicia after one of our wonderful constructive discussions and I said, for those of you that would like for forgiveness of your sins and for your wrongdoings, raise your hand. How do you think that would go over? That would not go over well at all, right? No, she'd probably punch me in the head or something. Yeah, but wait a second. I'm a preacher, but I'm a worship leader, but I'm also called to be a husband. See, I'm called to be a husband to my beautiful wife. I mean, she is drop dead gorgeous. I'm also called to serve her and to lay my life down for her like Christ did for the church. I'm also called to be the dad to 3 amazing young men. All 3 of my boys serve in church. And man, I am so thankful for that. And I am also called to be the pops of a beautiful 1-year-old granddaughter. You see how that works? So that's 3 different things that I do, but I'm still the same person. It's a different way to come across with that. And what I'm trying to say is that it's a different expression of my calling. And what I hope this morning that you realize in your own life that the who you are is way, way, way more important than starting with the what. Way more important. See, now, if I'm called to be a minister, but I neglect my kids, I'm failing as a minister. I'm not living my calling. If I'm the best worship leader on the planet, but I treat my family and my friends and you guys like dirt, it doesn't mean anything. If I'm called to be a husband to Alicia, but I'm having an affair on her, I'm failing in my calling. And then not only that, she's probably going to kill me. And it's rightful so. You know, we all have that. Yeah, that's exactly what would happen to me. I would end up being like that piece of paper, 6 feet under. We've all seen ministers that have a lot of charisma. We've all seen a lot of charisma, people that have a lot of charisma. They start ministries, and then all of a sudden they get caught up in something, and it's because their character and integrity wouldn't keep them from falling. See, your calling it's not about something important that you do in the future. Your calling is about being faithful to Jesus today. It's about being faithful to Jesus today. It's about who you are today. It's not about what you do in the future. The Apostle Paul said it best like this, and I love thinking about this. He says that whatever you do, whether it's in word or deed, do it all in the name of Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him whatever you do it as you're doing it unto the Lord. So that means if you're stuck in a situation where you know that it's not where you're going to be in the future, you still want to do that to the Lord. You still want to give it your best shot. If you're firing on all cylinders and things are going great, you want to do that unto the Lord. I want to talk to you about two different stories in the New Testament. And I love these stories. I don't have time to read through them all. But they take place in Mark chapter 10 and Mark chapter 11. We have James and John. And, they've been hanging out with Jesus for the last couple of years. And I'm assuming when you hang out with somebody, you get really comfortable with them. You let your guard down a little bit. Well, they approached Jesus and they said, Jesus, man, we got a question for you. And I can only imagine the look that Jesus probably knew what they were going to ask before they even asked it. And so he's like, okay, yeah, it's going down. Here we go. So this is what they said. They said, Jesus, when you get into paradise and you're sitting on your throne, do you care if maybe John and I sit on the right side or the left side of you? It don't matter which one gets which side. We just want to be up there with you. In other words, they wanted some recognition. They wanted people to see them. When they seen Jesus, then they would say, oh, well, look at that. There's James and John. But Jesus took this opportunity to teach a really good leadership lesson. And he said this. He said, listen, man. He said, I'm just going to tell you guys something. He said, in order to be a leader, you've got to learn to be a servant. If you want to be first, you're going to have to learn to be last. In other words, you have to have a heart of a servant. It's not about the visibility. It's not who you are, and it's not where you are positioned. It's not about the title. There's too many people that pursue the title. Jesus was teaching them, that's not what it's about. If you want to be great in the kingdom, you've got to learn to be a servant. And the better you learn to be a servant, the greater you'll be in the kingdom. So then we move on to chapter 11, Mark chapter 11, and I'll kind of give you a rundown of what's happening here. So this is the week that Jesus is going into Jerusalem. It's his triumphal entry into Jerusalem. And Mark says that he has an assignment for two disciples. Now, in my opinion, if I'm Jesus, and in chapter 10, these two guys, James and John, ask me this question, you better believe I probably am going to use them as an illustration in this service. So, but I don't know that for sure. I'm just saying it could be James and John. It doesn't say that for sure. But it says that Jesus calls two disciples. Now, can you imagine what that would feel like to those disciples? They've give up everything they've had for the time that they've been following Jesus. Guys, this is their big event. Look, man. Look right here. Yeah, we got Jesus walking in. We're right beside of him. Oh, look how good we are. Look how perfect we are. We gave up our family. We gave up our business to follow Jesus. And this is our moment. This is our moment to shine. This is when Jesus is going to establish his kingdom. We're going to sit at his table. Listen to what the assignment is. Mark chapter 11, verse 1. As Jesus and his disciples approached Jerusalem, they came to the towns Bethphage and Bethany on the Mount of Olives. Jesus sent two of them on ahead. He said, go into the village over there, and as soon as you enter it, you're going to see a young donkey tied there that no one has ever ridden. Untie it and bring it here. And if anyone asks, what are you doing? Just say that the Lord needs it and will return it. Can you imagine the look on their face? So wait a second, Jesus. Let me get this straight. We followed you for 2 years. We've seen you cast demons out. This is our moment to shine. We're going to go in this town. We're going to lay hands on the sick. We're going to heal people. We're going to cast out demons. We're going to turn stones into bread. I don't know. They probably ain't going to do that. But Jesus, we followed you for 2 years. We got great leadership skills. We're people persons. You want us to do what? You want us to go on donkey duty? Yeah, and all the fourth grade guys in the house began to laugh on that one. Pastor Shai said, yeah, when you said that first service, I just wanted to laugh so loud. You could. But yes, can you imagine? You've assigned us to donkey duty? See, the disciples were about to learn a huge lesson. The size of your assignment never determines the significance of the impact. See, the very thing that God has called you for, the very thing that God has anointed you for, He's enabled you for, He's trusted you to do, it may seem very insignificant right now, but it could be more significant than you'll ever know. See, just like in the Old Testament, a little shepherd boy, he found that a little stone about this big around could take down a large giant. We found in the New Testament a little boy that was being willing to be used, to give up what he had for Jesus, who had a Lunchable. He was part of the greatest miracle that God performed while He was on earth. He fed 5,000 men and their families because this kid was willing to do it. See, you are called by God. You are chosen by God. You're set apart. So whatever you do, even if it's donkey duty, do it with faithfulness. Do it with passion. You do it with integrity for the one who gave it all for you. See, it's so much more about the who than it is about the do. See, these two disciples, they delivered the donkey that allowed Jesus to fulfill His calling. What they did, that was in part, has affected generations after generations after generations. That little assignment had a huge impact. So instead of saying the question, what am I created to do? We need to start with the who. Be faithful today to Jesus. You know, that's the thing I love about our church. We have so many different teams around here. Man, we've got people that serve on the greeting team, the parking team, the cafe team. We've got people that serve on the usher team, worship team. No doubt, it gets mundane. No doubt, you feel like it gets boring. But you don't do it because of you. You do it because of the one that gave His all for you. You're faithful. You're faithful right where you're at. And see, when we learn to serve as a husband with integrity, and to love like Jesus did, to live a life of giving and generosity, when we die to ourselves and we stop worrying about a title or a position, when it's not about my name and my status, and it becomes all about the one who gave His life for me, who shed His blood on a cross, who died for my sins, so that I could be forgiven. When it becomes all about Him, there's a really cool thing that happens. See, you're created uniquely. And when we learn that it's all about Him, you don't have to worry about finding your calling. Your calling finds you. Think about that. So something as meaningless as, donkey duty, it becomes meaningful when it's for the one that gave His life for you. What are you called to? You're called to a who before a do. You're called to become like Jesus. You're called to be set apart. You're called to be different. You're called to be a light in a world where those boundaries are so blurred. You're called to find yourself separate from them. You're called not to pursue the same things that the world pursues. You're called to become like Jesus. Some of you are here this morning. You're called to love a spouse that ain't quite as easy to love. Some of you are called to fight for your marriage even when the other spouse doesn't want to fight for your marriage. And that some of you, you're called to build a business. And you're like, how's that spiritual? JJ, how's that spiritual, man? Well, it seems to me like I remember in the New Testament, there was a guy that had 5 talents, and he turned around and got 10. And Jesus got really, really, really excited about the way he built that business. So if you're building a business today, build that business with character. Build that business with integrity. And everything that you do, build it unto the Lord. Some of you are here in this room, you've got a lot of education. You're probably a doctor of such and such. But you've made a decision to stay home and love those babies. In everything that you do it unto the Lord. Now, this is where I'm going to get real with you guys. I've got a confession. And I'm not proud of this by any means. I have been guilty of talking, I think, even with Alicia and some of my boys in the past. I've been guilty of saying, when I die, when I get to the end of my life, I want to feel important. I want to feel like I made a difference in somebody. I want people to look at me and say, man, that guy right there, he was a great dude. And I got to thinking about that statement. You know, in the end, when our number is up and our time is called, the only thing that really is going to matter is hearing this. Well done, you good and faithful servant. Well done, you good and faithful servant. Nowhere am I going to hear from Jesus, well done, you good and important servant. Nowhere. So when our goal becomes to hear, well done, faithful servant, then the success of my life isn't accomplished on doing something big in the future. It's not feeling like I need to be important. It's not feeling like I need to have a title before my name and letters after my name, PhD or DMD or DDS. Those are dental terms, by the way. It's not about that. It's simply about this. The success for me and my life is hearing, well done, you good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. Now I'm going to make you ruler over many. I want to read this again to you. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 1. I want you to feel the emotion behind this. Therefore I, a prisoner for serving the Lord, I beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. Bow your heads right there where you are.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed today's message. Thank you so much for joining us. Listen, if today you're watching and you're away from God, you don't have a personal relationship with Christ, I'd love to pray for you. And right where you are, you can open your heart to Jesus and receive His grace and His mercy in your life. So if that's you, do me a favor right where you are. Just stop and repeat after me. Come on, bow your head if you can and and let's pray. Say, Lord Jesus, I thank you for loving me. I thank you for going to the cross for me, for the wrong I did. I'm asking you to forgive me. I'm asking you to come into my life. I'm asking you to wash me inside and out. I receive your love today. I receive your grace. Thank you for a new start. In Jesus' name, come on, say it with me, amen. Hey, listen, if you prayed that prayer, I would love to celebrate with you. Do me a favor, text the words welcome home to 94,000. When you do that, you're going to get a digital copy, a link to a digital copy of our connection card. If you'll do me a favor and fill that out, I want to send you a copy of one of my latest books, Making a New Start. That's what you've done, and I promise you it'll be a blessing to you. So until next time, be blessed. Can't wait to see you again. Welcome home.